Geotrig Lesson 10, Day 1. Part A is line equations. So, I got some things up here, some things I don't. First off, I got horizontal line. Horizontal lines are lines that have a slope of 0. The second one, we have vertical lines. It's a line, obviously. A line what? With what kind of slope? It's a slope with slope that's first of all have a 0 slope. Let's think of this horizontal line. I'm going to back up once. That is what we would consider to be a horizontal line. And if I think about slope, actually right below vertical line I have these 2 fraction bars not being used. What is slope? It's rise over run. So on one of those I'm definitely going to put rise over run. Now let's think of rise over run, or the rate of change. If I go back to my horizontal line here, rise is how far? If I want to go from this point to this point, how far up do I go? How far down do I go? 0. I'm not going anywhere. So it would be 0 over 1, 2, 3. I just made that up, so it's 3. So it'd be 0 over 3. And 0 divided by 3 is 0. That's why you have a slope of 0. The rise is nothing, but your run is something. So therefore it's always 0 divided by some number. That always ends up being 0. Your vertical line, though, that's the other way, right? That's this way. What if I wanted to go from one of these points to the other? Can you guys be okay that my rise would be 3? Or if I went down, it would be negative 3. How far over, left or right am I going?
0.
So, what is 3 divided by 0?
Oh, that's undefined.
It's undefined. So, slopes, a line, or vertical lines, are lines with slope that is undefined. Is everybody okay with undefined slopes? Those are vertical lines. That would be like x equals. Horizontal lines would be y equals a number. So, slope is rise over run, or rate of change, or the change in y over the change in x. If you want to write that, the change in y over the change in x. That's what the triangle means. Delta y, change in. So sometimes in your science classes you'll use a delta S, which I think is entropy. So there'll be a change in increase, hopefully, or decrease in craziness, yes, disorder, or order. Entropy. You guys know what entropy is.
Nope.
Oh, craziness of the universe. Everything is entropy. Disorder.
Yeah. Can you infuse? What are you doing?
I got a big star on there. Actually, it's a little star. Any non-vertical line, so anything that's not straight up or down, has a slope of something, right? Whether it's positive or negative, or 0. And it has a y-intercept. It has to cross the y-axis. Horizontal lines will never cross the y-axis. Or x-axis, sorry. So you can't claim they're all going to have an x-intercept. But everything will have a y-intercept as long as it's not straight up and down. Can you guys picture this? Agree with this? It's chapter 4 of Algebra 1 all over again. So you guys have seen this many times now. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Also, we also talked about at that point in our career about parallel lines and perpendicular lines. Everybody with their hands, show me parallel lines. Go!
Like this.
Okay, we got a couple different variations, but parallel lines should generally, or should we say, go in the same direction. Parallel lines have what, guys?
Same slope with different y-intercepts.
Same
Beautiful.
slope, different y-intercepts. That is very good observation. Because if it had the same slope and the same y-intercept, it's just the same line. That's not enough to qualify it as separate lines. So, same slopes, different y-intercepts. Perpendicular. Everybody show me perpendicular, please. Perpendicular, they cross, but they don't just cross, they cross at
A 90-degree angle.
90-degree angles. Guys, if you remember from the extensive work we just did with proofs, we stated that if I knew things were perpendicular lines, then therefore they would form right angles, and then we can make the conjecture that all right angles are the same. So that was nice to know. So, perpendicular lines form right angles to each other. That's awesome. But there's also something very special about them.
They only meet at one point.
They're going to meet at one point. Good.
They have the same.
They do not have the same slope. What's that? They can have the same y-intercept. That means they meet there. But it does not mean they have to.
Wait, how can you not have the same slope? As
Opposite reciprocal slopes. Opposite reciprocal slopes. So, if we go back to parallel, if slope of number 1 is 5, so M1, line 1 is 5. If it's parallel, line 2 or slope 2 will be parallel ones right now.
Oh.
5, because they are the same. If I go down to perpendicular lines, if M1 is equal to 5,
negative 1/5.
then slope 2
Right.
is equal to the opposite, so that makes it negative, and the reciprocal becomes 1/5. Next up, the first 3 things up here should also be not an issue for anyone. Everyone right now show me, with their arms, positive slopes.
Tell me right thing I don't know.
If you're looking around to figure out a positive slope, hopefully you're only comparing your positive slope to someone else's. So, positive slope from left to right goes up. Negative slope should be going from left and right, and it's falling. And a 0 slope is the horizontal one. We just talked about that on the last slide. I'm actually a little disappointed. There were a lot of people looking around waiting for someone else. Okay, several of you. We should know positive, negative, and 0 slopes, guys. That is pretty common for this group and this class. We should know this thing. I also put up here slope-intercept form, point-slope form, and I'm going to add one more. Slope formula. I also want slope formula. We'll start off with the easy one here. What is slope-intercept form? Y equals mx plus b. But let's explain what some of these things are. What is m? Slope. Remember, slope as a fraction is our friend. We don't like decimals. We don't like mixed fractions. I want improper fractions. B is
Y-intercept.
y-intercept. So if I gave you a slope and a y-intercept, you're happy.
Yes.
Okay. Next one is point slope form. Who remembers point slope form? What's that?
Was that right?
I don't know. I didn't hear you.
It's supposed to be right.
That would be standard form. Standard form I don't have on here. We should put standard form. Let's put standard form.
Oh, there you go.
Standard form, what was that one again, Mike?
AX plus BY.
by equals c. Standard form doesn't give us a slope or an intercept really nicely, but what does it give us really nicely? Quickly gives us.
So,
No, not
Intercept.
no. You have to rearrange it. What if I left it in this form? Could I use the cover-up method? Cover-up method finds the x and y
Oh, intercept.
intercepts to graph it. So standard form is really nice to graph it using x and y intercepts. Plus, it puts our x's in one spot, our y's in another spot for elimination when solving systems. That's very helpful. Okay, go back up to point slope form.
Isn't that like x2 minus x1 over y2 minus
No,
Oh, that's a formula.
that's closer to the slope formula. Point slope, y minus y1 equals
X minus X.
m times
That's wrong.
x minus x1, where m again is the slope. So we know that already. But x1 and y1 is the ordered pair that's associated with it. So an ordered pair that's on the line, and slope is still slope. So I'll make this connection up to there. So you're given a point and a slope, so you use point slope. Both of these methods, slope-intercept form, point slope form, will both give you the line equation. So if you wanted to use this method, which is probably the first method that you guys learned to write an equation, you were given a slope and you were given a point, x and y. You put in m for slope, you plugged in x for the x coordinate, y for the y coordinate, and then you were left with b. And you solve for b. The issue is people solve for b and they walk away. If I'm writing the equation, I need m and b, so therefore you have to rewrite the equation with y equals like 5x plus 4, because you found b to be 4. You need to plug things back in. If you're using point slope form, I'm going to plug in for m, and I'm going to plug in for x1 and y1, and then I'm just going to solve for y. I'm going to expand the right side where m is, and then get rid of y1. Bring it to the other side, and I'm done, because then I'll have it in slope-intercept form. In the end, we want slope-intercept form. We're happy with that. We like that form. Okay. What is the slope formula?
Y sub 1 minus y sub 2.
Okay, I am hearing it backwards for the most of us would probably remember it. It's actually, for what we usually write, is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 all over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. y2 minus y1, not y squared minus y to the first power. x2 minus x1. Now, would it be wrong if you said y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2? No. It doesn't matter, because the order of the points don't matter as long as you recognize that I've got x1, y1 above and below each other, and you also have x2, y2 above each other. Any questions on that? Okay, so we have 3 problems to get through and we are done. First 2, here we go. First one, I want the equation of the line through -3, 2 and 4, -3. Think about what we just did. What do we need to write an equation of a line? Slope and a y-intercept? Well, do I have either one of them?
Yes.
What?
Slope.
You don't have slope. It doesn't tell you slope.
You find slope.
I can find slope. So to get the slope, I need the slope
Formula.
formula. Guys, I can't stress this enough. I say it every time we use a formula. If you're going to use one, you will write it down. It's the best way to make things be easier for you. I don't want to try to recall a formula, and use it at the same time. There is a greater chance for error. So, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Find the slope, please. Go. Okay, so what should I do next? Angel. Okay, guys, I'm not going to plug in anything yet. I'm going to label them. So therefore, I'm going to say x1, y1, x2, y2. Does it have to be that order? No, as long as I have xy, xy. So now I can go up here and say, what's y2? Negative 3 minus 2 over 4 minus a negative 3, which means plus negative 5 over 7. If you happen to change your order of points around, you should have got a positive 5 over negative 7. But still is negative 5/7.
I got a negative 7.
Next up, I just need to choose one of the points. Which ones do we want to choose?
4, negative 3.
4, negative 3. Okay. So we're going to use that slope and the point for negative 3. And I'm just going to use y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I'm just going to plug it in. So y minus negative 3 equals negative 5/7 times x minus 4. You guys okay with that? What happens when you subtract a negative?
It would add negative reality.
So it becomes positive?
Yes.
And then I'm going to distribute negative 5/7. Guys, last hour had a lot of issues because they forgot how to work with fractions.
What?
When you multiply fractions, you multiply across the top and bottom. When you're adding or subtracting fractions, you need to have a denominator. So, distribute negative 5/7 x plus 20 over 7. Please let me know if you are struggling and not understanding this. Next thing, subtract 3. But when I subtract 3, it's really 3 over 1, which means I have to get a common denominator. The common denominator between negative 3 over 1 and 20 over 7 is what? It's 7. So I multiply the bottom by 7. I have to multiply the top by 7. And what's 3 times 27? Or 3 times, wow.
21.
3 times 7, or negative 3 times 7, is negative 21 over 7. Which means I'm going to add that to this guy. What's 20 minus 21?
1/7.
So, it's y equals negative 5/7 x minus 1/7. Done. And you can use point slope or slope-intercept form and solve for b. It works. You still have to work with fractions. It's not like you can get away with it. Number 2, I want you guys to give me the line equation through the point negative 5, 5 and is perpendicular to the following line. 3y plus 4x equals 2. Mike, what form is that again? The equation on the board. That one.
Oh, that one? That's standard.
Standard form. So, standard form, we already talked about it, does not give us any real usable data up front, yes? So, I probably would want to switch that to what form to give me some nice information? Slope-intercept form. So, to get that to slope-intercept form, solve for y, which means get rid of 4x. So 3y is equal to negative 4x plus 2. Question might come up. Well, can I just leave it as 2 minus 4x? Yes. But in slope-intercept form, it's y equals mx plus b. Hey, should I have 3 times y? No, I got to get y by itself. divide by 3, and I'm just going to divide everything by 3. So, y equals negative 4/3 x plus 2/3.
Your clock's broken.
So, we now have the slope of that line. What's the slope of that line?
Negative 4/3.
Is equal to negative 4/3. I would agree. That is the slope of the original or old line. I want to be perpendicular to that, so what am I going to use? What is what I'm going to call my new slope? Has to be opposite, so it makes it positive, and reciprocal? 3/4. So is everybody able to identify the old slope?
Yeah.
Perpendicular slope to that would be opposite reciprocal, so it makes it positive and flips it to 3/4. So now I have a slope of m equals 3/4, and I have a point. Can you write the equation?
Yeah.
I would hope so. We just did it on the last problem. Do it again. So, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Y minus 5 equals what? 3/4 of x minus negative 5, which eventually will become plus 5. Distribute. If I distribute 3/4, what do I get?
15.
3/4 x plus 15 over 4. So now the last part we have to do is add 5. But 5 is really 5 over 1. Common denominator would end up being 4. And 5 times 4 is? So I'm going to add 20/4 to 15/4.
35.
There we go. 3/4 x plus 35 over 4. Done. Okay, so to do this one, it was a graph on the paper, and it was a graph with two different equations graphed together, and it wanted you just to find the equation of each line, given a graph. This is no different than what we just did with the 2 points. You just find your own 2 points. Let's start off with the blue line. What kind of line is that? What's the slope? 0. What's your y-intercept?
2.
So it's y equals 0x plus 2. Or what's 0 times anything?
0.
Gone. So it's just y equals 2. All horizontal lines are y equals a number, aka the y-intercept. Done. That's how easy they can go. The other one, if I'm given a graph, I can make this so much easier for myself by saying, hey, on this graph, can I actually see the y-intercept? What is it? It's at 0, 7. That means I know my b value, don't I?
Correct.
7. If I could find my slope, I'd be pretty happy. Could you guys also identify your x-intercept by chance? It'd be right here. What would that be? Negative 3, 0. Could I figure out my rise and my run? How far up do I go to get to there?
7.
Oh, 7. How far over do I go from here to there?
3.
So guess what the slope is? So m equals 7 over 3. And b is equal to, wow. B is equal to 7. Could you not write that? Y equals 7 over 3x plus 7. Done. You guys okay with this material? Okay, it's the worksheet. Writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. It's found on Haiku in the handout section. Have a great day.